Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I'm going to show how I made this layout in my latest altered book. I have just started working in it. It's from 1851 and it's called L'Ami des Enfants. I am crazy about this cover. Inside are two pockets. Pocket here, pocket here. And in those you can put all kinds of paper ephemera. You can put in I've got a lot of different things, cards, you could put in a letter, photographs, whatever makes you happy. So stay with me and I'm going to show you how you can do something similar yourself. If you like altered books and vintage paper and old books, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notifications, and you will have more of them in your life. I have already prepared this book. I have chosen a pretty thin book so I wouldn't have to tear out a lot of pages and weaken the spine. Then I tore out maybe 1 or 2 pages per signature and glued the pages together, 4 or 5 in a chunk. So now I have a nice, robust substrate that will stand up to paint and stenciling and gluing and all that kind of stuff. I do have a longer video about tearing pages and gluing pages, and I will link to that in the text below this video. I love me some pockets, and I have started here. I glued, cut this on the diagonal and glued a few pages to a few other pages, and now I have that pocket. Over here, I've got a couple of sections. I rough tore this about 1 inch from that page. I'm going to be gluing it here and here, which means I will have a pocket like that. The challenge with adding lots of pockets is that you want some variety. So for this middle layout, I wanted to use some papers from other books and make pockets out of those. These plates came from books that were part of a series called Our Countries. Our Country's Flowers, Our Country's Butterflies and Moths. There were Our Country's Wildlife, Our Country's Trees, and it was just a series back in the day. These plates are from 1895. I do use originals in my altered books, but I also made scans of these, and they will be in my next online newsletter, and they're free. To make this pocket with butterflies, I needed to find a plate out of the many gorgeous plates here that would give me a diagonal line, and I wanted to cut it against the wings. So the wings are kind of blending into the page. And I just looked, and I wasn't finding it. I just wasn't finding that line. So I decided to go with this one. And I could see that this was going to be my line. And I managed to draw it here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to bisect that one, go up, 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 and cut against the wings. So that's going to be my border of the pocket. As I said, these papers are 125 years old, and they're a little bit thin. This pocket is also going to be a little bit fragile because it's really swirly. And the whole point of the pocket is to put things in and take them out so you can admire them and play with them and put them back in. I wanted to make this paper a little more robust. So what I did was I glued it to a layer of mulberry paper. Mulberry paper is very, very thin and very flexible. So it is my go-to tool for reinforcing and for mending. mending wonky bindings and whatnot. It's easy to find in a big craft store or fine art store. You can also buy it online, and it is very inexpensive. I've let that dry, and now I'm just going to put it over here for a minute while we talk about this pocket. This is, I chose, the plates in the garden book were really, really, really colorful, but I wanted one that would not overwhelm the palette of the butterflies. So I found one that had color, but it was pretty dusty, which complements this. Another thing that complements this page is you've got the yellow here and here that is going to complement the yellow in some of the wings over here. So it's a good one. I'm just going to take my straight edge and tear, making a side pocket here. Not use this. Well, I'll use this for something else. You do not want to make that pocket too wide. It is pretty, but what will happen is if this is where your pocket is and you try to put something in there, you're going to run up against that middle binding thingy. And it will be very difficult to get your pieces in and out. I know, I found out the hard way. So I'm going to make it pretty narrow, more of a tuck spot than a pocket. So far, I am very pleased with how this is turning out. Get your swirly butterfly pocket and your not too wide tuck spot pocket over here. Even so, I can look at this and see that it needs something added to it. It needs some oomph. I think I'm going to add that by using some transparencies. I have printed both of these on some vintage tracing paper. I don't know which one I'm going to use. I don't know until I start taking them apart and messing with them and seeing what talks to me. So I'm going to be doing that, and you can join me. Like I said, printed these on vintage tracing paper. You can use contemporary tracing paper. It also goes down translucent, and new modern tracing paper is way more robust, so you can just put it in your printer. This, however, I love this vintage tracing paper, but it's more like a tissue paper. A little bit stronger, but not much, which means you can't feed it through your printer on its own. What I did was I took some masking tape and attached it to a piece of ordinary copier paper. Now, when I put it in my printer tray, it feeds and it's good to go. I just have to peel it off. Oops. Very carefully. Like that. I knew that when I picked out these two possibilities for transparencies that I was looking at something that would pull these two pages together. I want to rough tear this and start over here, go down here, make just this irregular, funky border that will pull the layout together. Even though I printed up this Portuguese letter from 1862, I was pretty sure I was going to go with the bird's eggs because everybody loves a good bird's egg. They're pretty and they're whimsical, and they also pick up lots of colors in both palettes, which is another reason that's going to pull this page together even as it's dividing it. But I also liked this. It's got the tobacco colors that you see over here. I was kind of afraid that might be too much sepia for the page. But now that I'm looking at the whole thing starting to come together, I think the next thing I'm going to try is combining those two. I'm going to see what it looks like if this is a rough border, and maybe fussy cut some of these eggs as embellishment. I'm going to do that and be right back. Here is that letter, and I have rough torn it to make a diagonal border piece thingy. I just rough tore it to the eye and then trimmed it so that it's going to meet up here and I hope look pretty seamless, like it's one piece. Now I can see what that's going to look like with the pockets over that. And I am really happy with how this layout's growing. I had a lot of different colors of eggs to choose from. And I thought that I would pick some that, again, balance out the palette. These browns are going to be picking up some of the browns here. So the eye is going to connect those two things. And again, got some brown here that picks up the brown in the moths. So, and we're going to move that a little bit to give it some motion so it's not too static. There's one there. And the same thing over here. I had a couple of green eggs. So I had the eggs with the green elements over here because that helps to pick up the green that's in the foliage. Is that upside down? If you aren't sure, does it matter? Okay, so the green here is drawing the eye over here. I'm going to glue this down. I get asked about glue a lot. You can use a PVA. It doesn't really work for me, so I use a gel medium. This is an acrylic medium. And I like it because it has a lot of slip and less water, so a little bit less buckling in a perfect world. Not always. There was a little buckling there, but... So now I've added a nice coat of acrylic medium to the back of my letter fragment. And you can see that as it's going down, it's become translucent. And I can still see the original text underneath. So that's going to make a lot of layer and texture and interest to the eye. Let's go back to the pockets. I'm inking up the edges here with an ink pad, a stamp pad, and a blending tool. If you do not have a blending tool, you can use a cosmetic sponge. It does the job just fine. But by adding this fuzzy border, it's giving the page a little bit of aging, but it's also pushing it back into the paper, the page a little, so knocking it back in there to give it some dimension and depth. Now I'm going to show you the secret to putting in the perfect pocket. If you glue this pocket into your book, you're going to glue it on this side, and this side, leaving one side open. Over here, it's going to be blah, 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 leaving this side open. But if you put it flat into the book, it's going to be so flat that you are going to be hard-pressed to get any goodies in there. So what you can do is a little bit of pocket paper engineering secret stuff. And that is by cutting a very narrow strip of paper, the same measurements of the sides of your pocket. You want to fold those in half. And now you've got a little bit of room for movement and chunking up. What you're doing is making a frame, a little bit of a support that's going to lift your image off of the page just that much. I have never found a way to do this that isn't tedious. So just put on some music and get sticky and get started. I have cut the corners diagonally so that they will fit together in a kind of a seam like that. Do not agonize over it if they don't fit perfectly perfect. I don't think the extra effort is going to give you a result that is that much better. One of the reasons it's tedious is you have to take your time as you go around and make sure that all of the borders are trimmed correctly. And as you glue, the borders may shift, just by a tiniest little millimeter, but it can throw the whole thing out. So I've got the same here, and it looks like this. And here you go. I have put a lot of stuff in this pocket, which I can do now because we have built in this frame to give it some room. Now, get plenty of good stuff in there. I don't know what's going to end up in here when the book is finished because I have at least another month of working on it. So I'll probably change my mind many times. But just to show how fun it can be and pretty, I have picked a few things. This French Holy card has the same colors as the palette here with the moths. So that's going to draw the eye across. Over here is a hand-embroidered postcard from the 19-teens. And it's got a burnt orange trim here, which is also the color in this lace postcard with some hand painting on silk. A handwritten wrapper from 1861. And finally, this old handwritten postcard. It's got those brown tones that we've got throughout, but it also has the plummy purple colors that are over here. So that's going to connect the eye like that. So it's not going to be page, it's going to be one layout. And as is often the case, I think it's just as delightful with nothing in it. That sometimes happens. It's a little secret, fun thing, secret under your cards. If you like altered books, I have a lot of them on my website, and there's a link to that in the text below this video. If you would like to get free high-res scans of these butterflies, please subscribe to my online newsletter. You can join on my site and the link below. It comes out once a month, and it always has scans of old paper ephemera, art tutorials, fashion, history, and the occasional pep talk. We covered a lot of ground today, just galloped through it. And if I can answer any questions, troubleshoot, help you see something that I might have gone through too quickly, please let me know in the text below this video. I'm sorry, in the comments. Until next week, happy making.